I said last time that what we're going to do is do part 2 of the negative cycle chapter, which I believe was chapter 5. Pardon me if I'm getting that wrong. Sometimes I get confused about the chapters, but it was the introduction to the negative cycle chapter. And so I thought instead of doing another presentation, since I already laid the information out there, we could just sort of talk about the homework, which was to assemble your, anatomy of a trigger for yourself and for your partner, or have your partner do it on their own, and then kind of lay it out and map it out to see how this negative cycle plays itself out between the two of you. And so I'm certain that a lot of you probably have questions about that, because it's, not, sometimes we get stuck trying to assemble our experience and understand ourselves better. So I thought I would just make some space for questions. And as we get some answers going, I have a document that I'm going to be filling out as we go, with just some strategies as we talk. And maybe some of you have some input on things that have worked for you that you would like to share. So, all right, let's go dive in. I've moved to a more secure place in my previously anxious response, and I now self-soothe, calm down, and try to communicate from the self. But with some triggers, it takes me a long time to get myself calm, and we stay in a disconnected state much longer. My avoidant partner keeps their distance still. Any thoughts, suggestions for how to help this? Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, congratulations that you are able to get more secure in yourself. That's amazing. That is absolutely the first step here. Nothing changes until we can do that. Clearly, your partner is needing to do some work around their ability to either re-engage emotionally or stay engaged emotionally. And so what you're describing is you're staying in a disconnected state much longer because you are able to disconnect. And that's kind of when I say sometimes people, as they grow, sometimes the anxious partner can start to avoid more as a way to kind of, offset the anxiousness. And sometimes it can take a while to find that balance between completely disconnecting and kind of finding this middle zone where you're not in the anxious state, but you're able to stay in there a bit. And I don't know if you're able to do that yet or not, but regardless, what you're finding is your avoidant partner isn't coming forward in that disconnection and trying to help you out with filling up that distance. So we do need for your partner to be able to do that. That's part of their work of bridging the gap in the relationship work. Your partner might be, I'm going to trust that your partner isn't purposefully keeping their distance just to randomly leave you abandoned or not do the work, but they haven't done the work on themselves to really know how to emotionally engage, know how to fill that distance. And so sometimes, a lot of the time, when avoidants don't know how to show up there, their comfort zone is just to stay out of it. I don't want to go there and feel unsuccessful or like I don't know what to do. And so they stay disconnected. So the first thing is that we need to get your avoidant partner emotionally engaged. And that needs to be, really clear to them that, hey, look, I'm doing my work over here. I'm working on, calming my own self, soothing my own self. And that's great for me as a person. But at the same time, I need some connection in our relationship. And I'm really seeing that that's going to require for you to do some work to re-engage emotionally. And we got to work on this together. How's that going to look? What's that going to look like? Because as I make more distance to help us, I need for you to help us too by stepping toward me in that place. And then how do we do that? Well, we do that by, doing the work I've laid out in the book, which is working on your understanding his trigger. So he can, assuming it's a he, your partner working on their trigger to understand more about what to talk about to fill that distance. And, I have also the podcast where I take the avoidant partner through that process of re-engaging so he can understand how to re-engage emotionally and fill that distance. There's other resources out there that are meant to help people become more emotionally engaged. So anyway, I'm just reading this and I'm reading, hey, I'm doing the work on my end and it really actually is helping. So I think the next step is just that avoidant re-engagement piece. 1 second. Okay. Any follow-up questions on that? Let me put that in our notes here. Okay, so this is going to be one note, both for health as an individual. Okay, So this is just an important note here. Some of you might already know this, but there's two pieces to this work, and three pieces actually, which is you got to do your own work to show up for yourself, just like the person who asked this question was describing. I'm doing it, right? And that's great. And there's so much value in doing that. Just forget about the relationship value for yourself as an individual, but for the relationship health to be on board, both partners eventually need to be able to do this. And sometimes one partner has to work on themselves for a while. So I hope I'm not wording that in the most formal way possible, but sometimes it's not so even. That's just the reality. Sometimes one partner is learning more, they're moving faster for whatever reason, and they have to spend some time working on themselves and contributing what they can to relationship safety before the other one is going to start to face their own stuff. And when we're communicating with vulnerability and healthy assertion, that is going to increase the odds of other partners' shifts. So the way I was answering that question that I just finished answering is that when I said, hey, I'm doing my work over here and it's really helping me, but I'm going to need you to do whatever you need to do to step into that space. That's healthy assertion. Okay. That is the healthy assertion piece. It's not saying I'm doing all the work. You don't do anything. You're not addressing your trauma. There's truth to all that. Right. But that is other focus. It's just focused on telling them what they're doing wrong, as opposed to really standing up for your own needs and saying, I need for this to happen in order to feel safe and close in this relationship. This has to happen. There's no guarantee that right then and there, your partner is going to go, okay, you're right. I'm going to do this. But when we continue to send that message and add in the vulnerability with it, you're moving in the right direction. It might take a while for it to start showing up. All right, Colleen.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi. So I have a question.
Sure.
My husband and I, Alex, we're in therapy with Jamie,
Okay.
and we have been working really hard. Our situation is, I guess, to just put it like quickly, we're having blended family problems. My stepson does
Mm.
not accept me. And my husband's way of dealing with it has been basically to exclude me completely from his life. He lives in our house, and every time they do anything together, I'm completely excluded.
Did we talk? Have I talked to you about this before?
Briefly, but
Yeah, I
not, I
remember
mean,
this.
a birthday party, I think
Yep.
I
Yep.
had a question. So anyway, we haven't really made much progress. We are still working through our negative cycle stuff. And it's really compounded because although I feel like I've made a lot of change, I'm still triggered at times when, like I'm literally excluded in my own home. It's super hard. I definitely don't protest and scream or act out or anything,
Hmm.
like I used to. Don't get like that triggered, reactive. However, even when I think we've been in a negative cycle for so long that even when I approach him very calmly with something
Hmm.
that's like in a positive way, not a criticism, he hears it as criticism regardless.
Okay.
Low fuse, whatever. And then more recently, he booked a trip, a family trip to go see his family back home. And the dates had to get switched because of his ex-wife's schedule. And that left me in a place where all the things I had put together to go weren't working out. We hadn't finalized our plans yet. And bottom line, now I'm excluded again from another family trip that he's going on anyway. Jamie just got to the point where she pointed out, she's like, look, you made the decision to choose you and choose your son and not choose your marriage and not choose your wife. And I appreciate that. And it's very validating. And it's really hard to hear at the same time, feeling very sort of betrayed again, because I keep having these repeat attachment injuries. They're happening like every week, like multiple times a week. But this one was a really big one because
Okay, I
family
want to
trips are so
let me just
important.
sorry, Colleen, let me just interrupt you here. I want to make sure that we're not getting into territory that I can't contain in this environment. So,
Well, my question, yeah, I just
okay,
have a
yeah.
question then. So my question is, we're in this place right now, and I don't want to go back to the negative cycle. I think we're doing much, much better, and I don't want to do that. And at the same time, how do I show up in this relationship for the next 3 weeks before this trip, and then after the trip, knowing it's coming, feeling hurt? Do I just pretend it's not happening? Because there's no point in talking about it anymore. Like, I tried to ask Jamie, but our session was over and kind of couldn't get to that. She said, obviously, we're not talking about big, heavy things until we have
Mhm.
our next session. But in the meantime, like, how do you do, like, how do I show up? Like, I have a tendency now because I don't want to fight and I'm so hurt. I
So
just avoid.
can your partner, he's husband, right?
Yes, my
Okay,
husband. Uh-huh.
can your husband show up for you right now? Is he able to understand where you are, help you emotionally with this? Is he able to do that?
I don't think, I mean,
Okay. Okay. So the
not
answer,
historically, no.
okay. So probably in this situation, from the information I'm gathering, is no, he can't show up for you right now.
Right.
He's also kind of choosing on, sounds like making these unilateral decisions about vacations and things like that. And all of this is going to translate into an unavoidable reality that you can't possibly feel safe and close when your partner is, when you guys, something's happening that's getting you stuck from working as a team here, whatever that looks like, and getting help with your emotional pain around just the fact that you're going to be left out. Okay. So it isn't possible for you to feel safe and close. I hope
Right.
that you guys can get there. But when you can't feel safe and close, the only thing we can do is accept that reality and take care of ourselves. And so, in this 2 week period, I don't know what that looks like as far as showing up to him, but I do know that there's got to be a lot of emotional work on your end to get yourself to a place where it's like, well, even though the relationship is struggling and this is terrible and it feels so bad, how can I have somewhat of a fulfilling life in this 2 week period? Because
Right.
the
I'm pretty
expect
good at that, but what I'm uncomfortable with is when I'm in the same space with him or
Okay,
like,
so what I like to say to people sometimes is like, how would you be with anyone if you didn't feel super safe and close? You just kind of light and polite, not expecting a lot of emotional connection because your body's going to be blocked to that because you don't feel safe with them. I don't know where he's at, but I think it's just what I call light and polite.
okay. Yeah,
Right?
Jamie says
Because
he's
here,
frozen. She said he's frozen
well,
and he's blocked and
okay,
she can't get to him.
another good reason he can't be there for you emotionally. So when someone can't be there for us emotionally, and we are reasonably sure we don't want to get vulnerable with that. There's no point in it. Hopefully, as you continue to work with Jamie, she can help keep opening up space for vulnerability so you guys can get there. But you're listing to me a lot of really good reasons why you're not going to be able to get support from him. He's frozen, he's got his own stuff. And so I'm just looking at, okay, now how do we deal with the reality? How do you,
Yeah, I guess like, yeah, like yeah, like do I sit through dinner? Like what do we talk about? Like do I talk to him like he's a stranger? It's so
I mean,
awkward.
it is awkward. So you might not go to dinner with them. You might say, look, I love you. We're working through this, but right now I'm kind of blocked from connecting to you. You're blocked from connecting to me. I don't know how to navigate that. Maybe it's better that we don't go to dinner. You can choose to go to dinner and keep it kind of surface level. I mean, I'll tell you the two things you don't want to do in dinner is try to get super vulnerable and expect him to be able to lean into that and validate you and hear you and give you emotional comfort. I would definitely avoid that. You have really good reason to believe you'll just end up getting dropped. I don't know. I'm assuming that he's not going to open up to you because he's frozen. So, and then I just, you're going to have to really lower the expectations of any kind of emotional support. And what is left over, surface level conversation.
Okay.
And what is left over beyond that is I don't want to go into that. That's awkward. That doesn't feel comfortable. I don't want to have to go to a dinner where there's no emotional connection. And so the other alternative is to not go to the dinner. But the worst thing to do is to go into it and expect to get some emotional connection that you're not going to get. And
Okay, I mean, like it's weird just being in the
there's
house with him. Like I
I know.
almost feel like
So
he is having an affair.
there's no better answer I can give you. The two answers are one, light and polite, don't have emotional expectations, continue to work with Jamie and hope to build that. Two, recognize this as an awkward situation that you don't want to be in and move I always say move your ears. There's two options. What we're going to keep circling back to in this conversation is you continuing to talk about the trigger. right? I don't like the trigger. I don't like the trigger. The trigger is where it's awkward. The trigger is we feel disconnected. And I'm just going to keep giving you the same two options because there aren't any more. Keep working on it if you feel like that's getting you somewhere. One, try to take care of yourself and the environment, light and polite. If you have to be around him, don't just get rid of the emotional expectations because he can't show up for you right now. And then two, or move yourself out of the situation until you guys get to a better place. So
Okay.
just two options there. I
Okay.
wish there was a third. I wish the third option was somehow we can connect in this space so it doesn't have to be awkward, but that's what you're working toward and you're just not there yet.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. That's helpful.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's go to Douglas.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. And I got to drop off here in a second at
Okay.
12:30 for a work meeting, but so I can come back to this. And I just want to make sure this was an appropriate question to ask at this time. But so I'm an anxious avoidant, and my ex-partner is a.
I'm writing, Douglas, by the way, if I'm looking down, it's because I'm writing notes, but go ahead.
That's right. She's a disorganized attachment, and we broke up about 2 months ago. And I recently sent her a copy of your book, and she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I will read this." And we've been having almost daily, about hour-long conversations about it, and been a lot of validation and stuff like that. I guess my question is, any suggestions to keep all the anger of the past not's been there. We've both been open and vulnerable and all that kind of stuff. Is there any good tips or suggestions to help hopefully keep that moving forward in a positive way?
Yeah. And did you say any tips on navigating anger? Did I hear that?
Well, no, we said we haven't had any anger. We've both been vulnerable and we've been validating each other and trying to understand. She's had a lot of questions about things I did in the relationship and why I did them and this and that. And, I'm referring to what I've learned through not only working through your book and through other counselors, but just, hey, I didn't know my nervous system was doing that. And I understand that and blah, blah, blah. So I was just like, any tips just to keep her hopefully engaged, keep things positive, and hopefully we can reconcile.
Okay. So the tip is continue to give her good emotionally connecting experiences. And hopefully she's doing the same for you. Oh, you still there?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So you just want to keep repeating these interactions that both of you walk away, or maybe one of you, walks away, depending on who's needing and the situation, feeling heard, feeling seen, feeling validated, feeling understood, feeling leaned into, right? That doesn't necessarily mean, I've said this over and over, that you agree with but you just keep having those repeated experiences. It's like the more repeated experiences you have of positivity, the more someone's going to want to go get more of that. We want to get more of what feels really good. And then, so what are those repeated experiences? Well, like I just said, this met attachment need interactions. And how do you get there? Well, you've read the book, so there's lots of tips in there on do this, do this, do this. And then really giving space to taking turns, especially if there's past stuff that needs to be addressed. Another really important thing that sometimes gets missed is leaning into each other's resentments and angers, not staying stuck in there, making sure that we're dealing with the stuff below it. But if we aren't talking about those resentments and anger, then they're never going to go away. And so we really need to be able to, sounds like you're kind of more deeper into the work right now, further along than she is. So you might just have to say, hey, I know we both got some resentment. Understandably, resentment shows investment. If you don't have resentment, that means the attachment is severed. So I would say I want to be here for you. I want to hear about that. Let's make some space for it, because if we don't talk about it, it's just that energy is just going to keep being there. And usually when you can lean in and really say, hey, I get that resentment, I get that anger, it makes a lot of sense to me, and just fully lean in, that's what makes it heal. And of course, we have to change the behavior, or whatever relationship shifts need to happen, negative cycles stabilized and stuff, so the resentment doesn't keep building. But sometimes that's a piece that people miss, is that there's so much value in the vulnerability, but there's not space for the vulnerability consistently if we don't dissolve that layer of anger and resentment. And the only way we do that is just anger needs to be validated, period. And changes that need to be made to keep the anger from building up.
Okay, I appreciate that. That was
Okay,
consistent with what I've been doing, and
great.
just and going forward, and yeah, just validating, and not only, like you said, the anger and the resentment too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we both care about each other. It got to the point where our ruptures were just too often and too much, and so I want to obviously show her that I understand why and where that stuff come from, and I can manage that now, and I can manage my triggers, which, she's triggered me several times in these conversations, and I've kept
Mhm.
calm, and I leaned into her, and all that kind of
Good.
stuff. So
Good.
good.
Okay,
Thank you
and
very
then
much.
on the other side of it, obviously you're going to need space too to share your stuff. I don't know if she's there yet, but that does you're setting the tone, you're doing the modeling right now, and eventually we need her leaning into you. Maybe she already is. And then the last thing I wrote down here is nervous systems have their own timeline. What you're doing is building trust. You guys have to build trust. And the only way you do that is with repeated interactions of something new and allowing the nervous system to begin to trust. So, okay. I hope that was helpful. Let me go to our little chart we're making because I want to add some stuff from what Douglas said, which is, and I'll put this on the website, by the way, which is, why aren't we? Okay. Healing is repeated experiences of something new. Build up interactions with met attachment needs. That is so important. The more you can make those interactions positive cycles instead of negative cycles by meeting each other's needs, even though it's hard, we got to figure out how to deal with those triggers that block that. The more trust will build and the more healing will happen. Okay. All right, let's go to next, which would be Angie. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Julie. Hi, Julie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I had a question about something that comes up during a negative cycle. I'm more the anxious and my husband's more the avoidant. And so I've been mainly raising our kids for the past 25 years. And recently I was gone for a week, and I asked him that while I'm gone, can you notice how I contribute and let me know when I come back? Basically, I was asking him to appreciate me while I'm gone and verbally tell me. I've seen from your post that as an anxious person, I need to feel valued. We've been doing some of the work together, so I was able to kind of share that word with him. Though when I came back, he didn't say anything.
Okay.
And then he said, like, oh, I'm glad you're home. And then about a week later, I brought it up. He's like, oh, I forgot. And I feel like that's common. Like I'll have asked for something specific and he forgets.
Okay.
So my question is, then as we're talking, he says, oh, I think you need to go talk to someone about that. So my interpretation is if I go talk to someone about that, like in this case, needing to feel valued, then I won't have the problem anymore and he won't have to help me with it. So that's kind of my question is, what is that about when he's, go over there and work on that and then come back when you're done? What do you think that's about from his anxious point of view?
What it is he is completely out of tune. I mean, I don't know if out of tune is the right way. It sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like very little awareness of the value of emotional needs being met. And probably is very disconnected from his own emotional needs and his own emotions. So when someone is in that space with themselves, it's like really hard to recognize it in other people and recognize the needs in others. And so part of his work is going to be able to figure this out in his own self. And when we can tap into that in our own selves, then, when we can feel it, we start to understand, oh, this feeling needs something to feel better. Right. And so then we're better equipped to help other people and see in other people what we can see and feel in ourselves. And so then the question becomes, well, how do we get there? And, there's a lot to be said for that. How does anybody develop emotional awareness? Well, first he's got to have the motivation to do it. Right. And a lot of times people don't have the motivation not because they're trying to be obstinate or they're not, but because they don't see the value in it. It's so far out of his playbook. He's always stayed safe by staying in his head and probably, I don't know, working hobbies, the stuff avoidants do to feel successful in the world. He doesn't have success with vulnerability. So why bother going there? So now we need to kind of get him to buy into the fact that, hey, there's some usefulness here. And we can either do that by telling him there's value and hoping that lands, or we can, another way to do it is by giving him experiences of feeling emotionally held. So that puts the work on you. I do understand this, and you're not a therapist, but as partners, we are, responsible to some degree to helping each other with our emotions. And sometimes partners can get to the point where they can say, "Hey, I kind of see something's coming up for you right now." Like when I come at you and I say, and this doesn't take away from your need to feel valued. Like that's real. I want him to be able to say, "Oh my God, I see how important you are to this system. Thank you." But you might start with, "Hey, when I come at you and I say, 'Oh my gosh, look, you didn't do this,' and I'm sending these messages of failure, like what does that bring up for you? That must be a hard place for you." And just see if you can get him to share a little bit more about that for him. That's sort of starting to open him up to his own distress, not at the expense of yours, but as a way to open up the space to help both of you. And then I would maybe later circle back to that and say, when I leaned into you in that way, I wanted you to feel heard. I wanted you to feel understood. And like, can you recognize that that did feel kind of good? Okay. And hopefully he's able to see that and say, yeah, actually that was nice. And then maybe we can say, well, that was an emotional need. Like you have those needs. See, we're learning that you have these needs too. And then that's kind of opening it up. And then eventually we want to take that to, I understand. I want to help lean into what happens for you when I send these messages, you're failing. But I also want you to recognize that, one of the ways I feel filled up and supported is knowing I'm valuable. And it's going to take patience because we can't have him go to, A to G, which is being disconnected from his own stuff and then remembering to show up for you. It's not, he's trying to ignore you. It's just, it's not in his vocab. It's like, I don't know if he asks you to remember to change the oil or something. I don't know. Like you're just, it's not on your radar. It's like, I don't,
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope that helps.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess my follow-up question is, do you think I actually need to be showing him like, oh yes, I am going to talk to somebody about why my dad was so quiet after Vietnam and how come that makes me feel I need value? I mean, do you think I need to give him some of that?
What I would do is I would be curious about why he wants you to go talk to someone. That's his emotions. I would be like, well, what feels important about that?
Okay.
Because what he's saying is, I don't know how to help you. I
Yeah.
don't know how. I love you. I want you to get help. And oh, here's a great solution. Go talk to someone else, right? Or I don't know how to help you and I don't want to stand here continuing to feel like a failure because that feels bad. So, oh, here's a great solution. Go talk to someone. It's out of love for you and out of a survival strategy for him. So I would help him put some words to why that's his safe place.
Okay,
and then
that makes sense.
Yeah. And then you might say, you know what? Look, I get it. Like there is a lot of stuff around my dad. Maybe there would be some value in talking to someone, but wouldn't it be nice if we had that, what would be good for me as a person, but as a partner in a relationship, like I do need to talk about some of that stuff with you. That's part of connection.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And I could see that he's trying to fix it with that suggestion.
Yeah. It's his way of doing emotions.
Yeah.
Right. It's his way of showing love, which is it's not so much working, although it's better than not caring at all. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's his way of protecting his own pain around not being able to do what you're asking him to do.
Okay. Which I know he really does. Okay, Julie, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Let's go to Q&A. We've got a lot of questions here. Okay. Our negative cycle has multiple elements. My partner brings up a gripe that they have about me and they are often guilty of as well. I feel very defensive when raising this feedback and often engage, well, what about you? His response is always that it's not for tit for tat. Okay, this is a pretty easy one answer. Both of you, there's truth to the fact that this is happening. You're doing something that annoys him. I mean, I trust that he's not crazy. And I also trust that he's doing things to annoy you or trigger you. Both are true. We cannot deal with them both at the same time. If we try to deal with them both at the same time, you're seeing what happens. It just starts bouncing back and forth. Someone has got to, I like to say as a general rule, the person who brings it up gets the floor. We lean into that. We listen. We hold that. We say, okay, we don't go into our own stuff and say, well, you did do this too, because it just will not work. It will absolutely never in the history of a relationship or at least a struggling one, did the other partner go, oh yeah, let's talk about, actually, I brought something up to you that I'm disappointed with, but let's switch the topic and talk about, what your feelings right now. Nobody likes that. So we want you to be able to lean into that. Okay, help me understand what that's like for you. All right, I get it. You don't like that. Like, what can we do here? Here's what I might be able to do to help with that. And, whatever it is. And then later, because you need space too, later, a day later, or later that day, so it doesn't feel tit for tat, go in and say, listen, I'm really working here on leaning into you. I want you to have that. I want you to feel heard and understood, but I got some things to say too. And sometimes I don't want to end up feeling alone with that either. So would you be willing to kind of hear me out? That's the way to do it. And if you're saying, I don't bring up his behaviors because they aren't as much of an issue, they are an issue. Because if they're coming up when he brings something up, they are an issue. You're for some reason, you're not feeling safe bringing them up outside of when he brings them up. I don't know what it is that feels only safe about it coming alive. Even if that issue is it's not fair. Even if the issue is it's not fair that I let these things go and I don't get that grace back at me. So something is an issue there when keep coming to find you. So I would really work on your side of when can I address my issue too in a healthy way instead of waiting for him to bring it up. Okay, so good news. Cecilia, oh, sorry, I'm trying not to say names here. Her boyfriend recently started reading the book and he watched the book club recordings and he's really growing and love it. Thank you for sharing that. There's so much value in this work and I appreciate you putting that out there and letting everybody see the hope in it. Okay, my husband and I are in a crisis, separated for 13 months. How do you gauge how long to give him his space and time before re-engaging if it's been a few days of no contact? No fights or acute issues, just him being triggered by our recent anniversary. A few days is just way too long for a relationship to be safe and healthy. We need to get you guys some help where we're figuring out why he's needing to go away for a few days and why is that his safe place? What's going on that's motivating those days? It's a function of a negative cycle. So someone's going to have to help you understand that because the way he's dealing with his pain is just going away. Unfortunately, there's just nothing I can say that's going to help you feel safe and close in the relationship if you know that at any given moment, he's going to go away for a few days. And there's probably things on his side that he's not feeling safe and close about too. And so the best I can say is work on figuring out what's blocking him from not having to go away. It sounds like he needs to do some of his own work from what you're saying. And while we're working on that, how can you care for you when we're still in this cycle that we haven't yet learned how to get out of and he goes away for days? How I answered Colleen earlier. It's like, okay, option A is that we don't have to do this, but we don't know how to not do it right now because we haven't learned. And then so option B is how can I care for myself as a human, as an individual and not have to, of course I'm going to be sad that my partner can't show up for me, but how can I not just kind of let it like completely ruin my life? Like how can I kind of stay engaged in my life? Some of that is going to be feeling the feelings around, the despair and sadness around him being gone instead of kind of staying in an anxious energy if that's what you're doing. This workshop, the course I'm trying to put together is really about helping people do that, which is feel these triggers, stay with them, work through them, and so we can do new things. So yeah, option A or first part of the plan is to work on it so we don't have to keep going into this place. And the second thing is, how can I take care of myself as an individual when we do go into this place and he disconnects and I don't have control over that? And then you said how long to give? Oh, wait, the long to give is few days. I mean, I think too, there's space to say, just to stand up for that. And I mean, we can't guarantee that he's going to go, okay, I won't do that anymore. But standing up to that in a healthy way is, hey, this isn't okay. Like this is really not going to work for me. Like I can't feel safe and close to you if I never know when you're just going to go away because we get, stuck in this place. So we're going to have to get some help here. We're going to have to figure out a way that we don't keep going back to this cycle because it's just not working for me. That's healthy assertion. When in early dating with someone, first date time frame and you arrange a call and they don't call. The next day they said they fell asleep, but no apology. Do I raise this or let it go as we barely know each other and see it as information now? I don't want to end up with him thinking he can do this, but I don't want it to appear too anxious or unreasonable so early on. I just wanted an apology for the disrespect on my time. Yeah, I would use that as really important information. I wouldn't try to push past that. We don't know where he is. We don't know where he's capable, what he's, his capabilities are as far as being able to respond to that request for an apology. I don't know if you asked for one, but we don't know yet. You're just getting to know him, and you say, okay, like, is this an isolated event or is this part of a bigger pattern? And if it is part of a bigger pattern, then it's another conversation, which is probably not, I mean, unless he's willing to like see these things and you've given it some time and you say, hey, look, there's so many things I really like about you, but it's really important to me to be in a healthy, authentic, open communication relationship and about things that aren't working for us, including what's not working for you. And is that something that you're wanting too? Are we on the same page here? Are we in alignment here? Because if we're not, I don't know if this is going to work out. You really need to honor your own need to have health, right? And that doesn't mean that you just drop him. It means you talk to him about it. See if he's willing to see that. See if he's willing to own some of that, and see if he's willing to, most importantly, work on it. If he is willing to work on it, the possibilities are endless. If he's not willing, if he shuts down, doesn't even want to have the conversation or whatever, gets defensive or tells you you're too much or wanting something very appropriate that hopefully you are appropriately wording, then that is a really good sign that might not be the best fit for you. And you will continue to feel like you feel now, which is dropped because they said they were going to do something they didn't do. So you can only expect more of these bad feelings. And I would like for you to really make a clear choice about if that's what you want to feel like in a relationship. It says, thank you. I think this is follow up for the person who has a hard time sitting with their partner when their partner brings up a concern. When I'm hurt, it's very hard to reach out to be the one creating safety for him to open up. Yeah. So yes, I hear that it's his work to initiate the repair and leaning in me into opening up the conversation. Yeah. So the work for you isn't just to simply try to override your difficulty showing up for him. The goal is that you can, and sometimes you do have to consciously put your trigger to the side, but your work outside of that moment is to figure out what is so hard, what's blocking me from really being able to kind of tolerate that better and stay in there. It's always going to be triggering, right? Most people are never going to feel fully not triggered when someone's kind of bringing up something that they're concerned about. It gets better, I think, and they get fewer and farther between, but we always have to assume it's always kind of hard to hear negative feedback, right? That doesn't mean that it has to devastate us. We can get it to a place where it's manageable. Right now, it doesn't sound like it's really manageable for you. You're saying, look, I'm really struggling staying with them because this pain gets so big. So you're going to need to figure out, what is that pain about? That's when you're going to go into that anatomy of a trigger chart, which is when I'm having to stay with him, like, what message am I getting? What does that bring up in me physically? Is there a fear there? Is it a fear I'm never going to be heard? If I stay with him, I'm just never going to be heard. If that's the case, what we know that fear needs is it needs experiences of you being heard too. And you can tell him, look, I want to hear you. I want to lean into you. But I also, to feel safe doing that consistently, I'm going to know I'm going to need to be able to be heard too. So we got to really work together here on this. How do you deal with the relationship maintenance fatigue when you're the recovering anxious partner that is married to a recovering avoidant? I would need to know more about what that relationship fatigue is all about. Why is it feeling like such hard work? I'm not saying that's abnormal. It might just be a part of your growth, but to get through that fatigue, we need to figure out, what is the fatigue? Is it fatigue because you're constantly having to manage your own triggers and not go into a negative cycle, and it takes a lot of emotional pushing down? Fatigue that, I don't know. Usually when I hear fatigue, it's just the emotional fatigue of the work. What is so hard about it? What needs to happen to make it feel easier? It's hard to answer that. If I'm with a client, I'm going to spend, maybe 30 minutes trying to kind of figure that out. So I would look at that anatomy of a trigger chart and figure out a moment when you felt the fatigue. All right. You're telling me about fatigue globally. I want to know, when did this come up last? When was a moment where you felt that fatigue hit your body? What happened right before that fatigue? What took you there? What was the situation? What was the message you got from your partner? What happens in your nervous system? And try to kind of figure more out about that so you guys can talk about that instead of trying to deal with whatever that is by going to what I'm going to assume is being stuck in anger and anxiety, which is fatiguing. How do you soothe yourself when you find your spouse is not showing the affection that you're looking for? Well, you have to really learn to show up for your own emotions there. You know, you're telling me again about a hard reality that your husband isn't, or your spouse isn't able to be there for you in this moment. And I would be curious about what's blocking them from showing up. I don't know quite what you mean by showing affection. It means a lot of different things for different people in different contexts. So I would be curious, like, what's blocking him from being there in that moment? And if he's not able to be there and there's nothing that you can necessarily do about it in this moment, then you have to really be able to show up and go, wow, this really brings up a lot of loneliness for me. This is a hard place for me. I don't like it. I've felt here like this before. I felt dropped and alone before. And it's a terrible place, and kind of feel some of that sadness around it. Sometimes when we just make space for that sadness and cry it out or whatever, it starts to relieve. It's better than staying stuck in useless anger and anxiety in a moment that's not going to really help you get your needs met. At the same time, that anger does need to be processed. But the problem is you can't process it in the relationship because he's not there for you right now. So journal, talk to a friend, anything you can do to get out of that stuck, anxious anger down into the vulnerability below it. Feel some of those painful feelings, support yourself in whatever way feels good for you. There's so many different ways to support our emotional pain. I mean, you can call and talk to someone, you can journal about it, you can just sit with it, you can exercise, you can take a bath, you can go get a massage, you can, again, I think probably the most effective co-regulation strategy really is connecting with other people. So anyone else you have in your life to give you that support. And then the biggest piece here is doing the work on the relationship to figure out why we keep going back to this block. What's this block about? How can we get it to the point where I don't have to self-soothe so much because we do have more space for this affection in our relationship? All right, I'm going to do 4 more minutes here. In the book, there's an example of a trigger around feeling your partner distant themselves. However, I am apparently often sensing this wrong. And when I note that I'm sensing the distant, it offends my partner and causes a separate issue when they are annoyed, mad that I am interpreting this way. Is there a different way for me to address this? Or am I perhaps missing something in a negative cycle? Okay, so the real work here is, I don't know what's going on with your partner that it doesn't feel right for them. Something happens for them where they're feeling unheard or unseen or misunderstood. If you're saying, and look, you're doing good work if you're trying to figure out, what's going on here so we can address it. That there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's good. There's a gap here though, because now somehow when in this process of you trying to make sense of it, your partner is getting missed. She's not feeling seen and understood. I would really try to lean into that. I would really try to go, okay, hold on, something important's coming up for you, because it doesn't sound like you're liking that I'm kind of assuming that there's a distance there, and you're saying, no, you're mad. Now, help me understand the mad. What are you mad at? I mean, I would like for them to be able to express their mad in a healthy way. You don't deserve to be on the other side of kind of explosive mad coming at you. But, you do need to be able to kind of lean into that and go, well, gosh, that makes a lot of sense to me. If I'm mad and I've got someone telling me I'm just distancing and that doesn't feel right, I get it. Like, I would not like that either. So I apologize for my role in this. And then, later you're going to need to come back and say, we got to figure this out. I want to be able to lean in and hear you, but, I need to talk about what comes up for me too, because if you're not distancing, we're still in a place of disconnection and it still feels really bad. So we still need to work on how to bridge that gap in these moments. What are you needing in there? And here's what I'm needing. Okay, I'm going to try to get through 2 here. Okay, that's a great question. So I understand where you're coming from. So someone's saying, look, we get in these cycles, and I brought up the idea of joining my Julie's Wednesday night group, and he agreed, and I want to set this up for success. So what is the best episode to start with and to get him, interested and motivated to keep going? I'm going to defer to Katrina on that. It might actually be the course on or workshop or whatever I call it. There's a course on my website about the anxious avoidant dynamic. That might actually be a little more useful. And if not, something about the negative cycle in the Wednesday night group, and Katrina can dig around and find out what that is, because the first thing that we want him to know about is this is a cycle. This isn't him trying to fail or do something wrong. It's this cycle that's come up between the two of you that, you both are contributing to. And there's a really good reason he needs to go into avoidance, because that's somehow a safe place. That's another place to start, is anything that kind of helps him understand his avoidance and with a reframe that he's not being bad. He's not trying to leave you feeling abandoned. He just doesn't know what else to do with these emotions. And there's a really good reason that avoidance has become his safe place. You might also get the book and read that avoidant chapter in there about describing it. So Katrina, can you help with that?
Absolutely. I'm just putting them all together for him.
Okay. Can you revisit the resentment comment? If there is a resentment, there is still a relationship. My spouse has resentment toward me and it's hard to accept. Yes. And maybe I should qualify that. So usually resentment in an ongoing relationship means that there is an investment. Now, I'm going to pick apart resentment versus anger. Reactive anger is typically crying for help. Reactive anger is yelling and whatever, protesting or calling names. Those strategies are trying to get your partner's attention, try to bring attention to the problem, trying to show you're hurt, because there's no other way to get the hurt through. And so the hurt ends up coming out in anger. That is usually a sign, a strong sign that there's still investment. I'm still trying to reach you. The anger is still trying to solve the problem. When people stop caring and they lose their attachment, they stop being angry. They either do that in the relationship because they get to the point where there's no point and they just kind of check out, or the relationship ends and they have to go through a period of anger later until they get through that. And then eventually people get to a place where they're not so mad anymore. They just kind of accept it. Sometimes people do get stuck there. So the anger does represent a connection. Now, resentment too, but sometimes resentment can happen when there's no attachment. It's more like this kind of primary simmering kind of anger that you hurt me and I don't want to be with you anymore, but that hurt and resentment is still there, but there's no desire there to connect with it. I don't know what's going on with your partner. I don't know, I'm going to assume if they're still in it with you, then there is space to work through that resentment. And the only way you'll ever know is to validate it. That we have to trust that there is a very good reason that your partner resents you. I don't know what that reason is. I don't know how much of that resentment is related to stuff from their past. I have to assume that there is resentment around the negative cycle stuff that you both contributed to. I have to, because very rarely do I see a couple where the resented partner doesn't have a role in being resented. Okay. However, you probably have your resentment too. And that also needs space. And so the only way you're going to know is leaning into it and seeing if by leaning into it, it starts to resolve a bit. We also have to work on what's causing this resentment. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to stop doing X, Y, and Z. I don't know, but I do know somehow some shifts need to be made either around your behavior that's causing resentment or their unrealistic expectations of your behavior. Something needs to shift so we're not building up more of it. And then we need to heal it. That you heal it by validating, leading into it with the understanding that if you have resentment, you also need to have space for that to be held and heard too. All right. I'm so sorry. There's too many questions here than I can get to today, but go ahead, and if you got a question answered this week, please make some space for other people in 2 weeks. And then if we get through all of those, then come in with your question at the end of that, just so we make sure that everybody's getting helped here. So again, we're going to be off next week, but we'll come back together the following week, and we're going to start with, Katrina, let me look at my own
Chapter 6.
My own book. I believe it or not, like I just yesterday got an updated copy of my own book that I had to order on Amazon. Okay, chapter 6, Preventing the Negative Cycle, the attachment friendly environment. Okay, I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye.